Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sophie, this is Jackpot Comic Talks, and in today's video I've got a list of my top 5 favorite spooky Halloween reads, so let's get into it. Alright, so happy Halloween, you guys! This is my favorite time of year. Halloween's my absolute favorite holiday. I love dressing up. I normally do cosplay throughout the rest of the year for conventions, but Halloween is another excuse to dress up, so I'll take it. And I love the spooky vibes. My room is decorated in Halloween decor all year round, and I love a good horror movie or scary story, and I always have, so it's my favorite time of year. But I figured I would do a Halloween video. This is actually the first Halloween video that I'm going to do. I decided to do the Mary Jane cosplay today. Ignore the fact that the sign is supposed to be on the other side of me. I can't really put it over here, so I threw it over there instead. But I figured I would do the Mary Jane cosplay today, and then we're doing a Halloween party at work on Monday, and I'm dressing up for that, so I'm gonna do my other Halloween video when I've already got my other costume on, and I'll probably upload that video on Halloween. So, cat getting into something over there. If you hear crinkling, it's the cat. So I thought I would do a video for my top 5 spooky, scary stories for Halloween. They're all graphic novels, and some of my favorites to read during this time of year. So let's get started. So first we have a bonus book. This is book number 6 on the list, but this is a classic. It is Batman: The Long Halloween. Shockingly, I don't own a copy of this book. This is the one from my local library. I do need to buy myself one, but this is one of my favorite Halloween reads for very obvious reasons. I remember when I read this for the first time, the ending, the twist at the end just shocked me. I remember the first time I read this was 6 or 7 years ago. I was probably 13 or 14. But oh my goodness, the twist at the ending of this book just completely shook me, to my core. I was like, what? No way! Because it took me by surprise. I did not guess it at all. But it's a great book. Most people know kind of the plot line and general story. I won't go into too much detail there because, again, I think this is on, every recommended Halloween reading list for comic books, but it is really good, and I think it is worth a read, and fun to reread year after year on Halloween. Starting off our top 5 list, at number 5 is the Exorcists. I read this one again quite a few years ago, and I love this because it's very funny, but it's also, it can get pretty dark at times. It's a story about these two sisters, Kate and Kate, Kate with a K and Kate with a C, and they have a agency where you can hire them to kill the demons that are possessing you or a loved one. The plot I thought was super, it was very original. I can't tell you too much about it because there is a big spoiler that has a lot to do with the book that you learn pretty early on, but it's better if you find out when you're reading instead of me telling you. But I remember absolutely loving this book the first time I read it. When I reread it, because I bought the second one, I loved it just as much the second time as the first time. And then the second one was pretty good too. It felt very fast-paced. It went from, the first one is I wouldn't say it's chill, but it also kind of is. It's just a very fun read. You don't have to focus a lot when you're reading it. So it's pretty steady going, and then you get to the second one and it's steady in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it's just bam, 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 bam. All of these things are happening, and it's like, whoa, hold on. And then, it's the end of the series after that. I think it's, I'm trying to see. Yeah, it's 10 issues in all. That's probably why it was fast. You know, they might have known they only had 10 issues to do this. So it still holds up. It's still really good. So number 5 on the list is The Exorcists. Then we have something a little different than a comic book. We've got a horror manga. This is Uzumaki by Junji Ito. And I am not only a huge comic fan, but I have a decent collection of manga as well. I had a huge phase when I was younger for like My Hero Academia and Bleach and Spy Family, and I'm looking at my shelf to remember the names of all of them. There's also Promised Neverland and Orange and Wotakoi and a whole ton of other ones. But now I really like collecting the horror manga. It's mostly what I read at this point. But Junji Ito is an absolute master when it comes to horror storytelling and illustrations, because he writes and draws these books. He has tons and tons of books. He has some longer stories like Uzumaki, Gaio, Tomi. I keep looking at my shelf just as a reminder. There's also No Longer Human, Smashed, and a few other ones. But he also has a lot of short story collections, and those are very fun as well. There's so many of them. I hope to eventually have them all one day, but he is so good at what he does. The premise to this is a town haunted by spirals. And I know that when you hear that or you read that, you're like, what? That sounds dumb. This book I think about on like a daily basis. You think, you hear that it's a town haunted by spirals, but then you see, the illustrations. This is one of the color illustrations just for the beginning of the book, like that. The first few pages are in color, but the illustrations are amazing. Some of them are so creepy and so weird, and this book is, I'm not gonna lie, it's seriously jacked up during parts, but it's very psychologically thrilling and scary. And again, like, let me hold this a bit closer. These illustrations are crazy good. I mean, you cannot get any better than this. Uzumaki was the first book of his that I read. Tomi is my favorite book of his, and Uzumaki is a super close second. Gaio was not as scary, but definitely made up for the fact that it was just disgusting, but in the best possible way, because it's not often that books make me have such like a physical reaction of cringing or like feeling sick. And almost all of his do. He's just so good at what he does. So I highly recommend anything by Junji Ito, but if you're looking for a good place to start, Uzumaki is definitely a great starter read of his. Number 3 on the list is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, another book that I read a few years ago, and I loved it. The illustrations in this one are so good. They're like a watercolor type illustration, and some of these images are just so like haunting and hauntingly beautiful. They're absolutely incredible. It's a very fun format for it, because a lot of the times with Archie books they're very cartoony, and this one's really not. So in this book, Sabrina is nearing her 16th birthday when she has to decide if she wants to become a witch or remain a human. Now, it's a kind of a difficult choice for her at that point. She's struggling between it, and a woman from her family's past comes back, and it's Madam Satan. She actually just had a book come out, or a one-shot single-issue comic come out not that long ago. It was just a few weeks ago. Haven't gotten a chance to read it. I've got a little stack of comics I plan on reading on Halloween, and that's one of them. So I'm waiting until Tuesday to read it. But she comes back and is trying to make Sabrina make some not great decisions. The characters in this book are very interesting. They all have great stories to tell. Betty and Veronica from like the Archie series, they make an appearance in it. And like I said, the illustrations are amazing. A very fun read. And again, a lot of these I don't want to say too much about because if I say the wrong thing, it'll spoil everything for you. So you kind of just have to read it yourself to see what all it's about. But this is mostly about her deciding whether or not she wants to become a witch or stay human. And then there's a bunch of crazy stuff that goes on and kind of interferes with all of that. So there you go. Number 2 on the list, this is Bloodstained Teeth. This book I got earlier this year. There's this one and volume 2. It's so good. The illustrations are pretty cool. They're very fitting for the book. It's a lot of neon colors and like very bright illustrations. It kind of looks like pop artish at some parts. It's very cool. Like I said, very bright, very kind of crazy, to be honest. But the plot of this is there's this guy Atticus Sloane, and he is a firstborn vampire. Firstborn vampires were born vampires, and the Sips are people who are turned into vampires. And they're, in this society, are kind of looked down upon, and they don't have the same abilities and social... the word escapes me. They're not as high up on the social ladder, so to speak, as the firstborns are. Now, the main character in the story, Atticus Sloane, turns humans into vampires or Sips for money, pretty much. Now, because the Sips are looked down upon, you're not supposed to turn people into Sips. You're supposed to just, kill people, drink their blood, and move on. So, the firstborn council finds out that Atticus has been just turning people into Sips, and they tell him that he has to kill every single last person he has turned, otherwise he himself will die. And he has turned a lot of people. Like, a lot of people. It's crazy. So he is on a mission to find all of these Sips and to kill them. Now, and some of them are super, super powerful. However, since they are Sips, they're not as powerful as him. So he, thinks this will be easy. And it's not. It proves that it is a challenging mission, and he has to go on this with his best friend. I forget his name, but it's a very fun and quick read, but it's also pretty serious, but then at the same time doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a very well written book. It has great twists and it keeps you intrigued, and I left volume 2 over there on my shelf, but there is 2 volumes of this. And number 1 on my list is a book that when people ask me what some of my favorite graphic novels are, I always recommend. And this is Afterlife with Archie. Now, the majority of the time, I am a DC or Marvel person. There are different series that I enjoy that aren't Marvel or DC. The Umbrella Academy for sure being one of them. Deadly Class, some Archie books, the Exorcists ones, Bloodstained Teeth. I will definitely branch out to a lot of like Image and Dark Horse comics. We'll branch out, but I mostly read Marvel and DC. However, I do love a good Archie book, and this one is amazing. Now, this is Afterlife with Archie, so it's Archie characters in the zombie apocalypse. So what happens is Jughead's dog, Hot Dog, gets hit by a car and dies. So he reaches out to his friend, Sabrina Spellman. You might also know her as Sabrina the Teenage Witch, who we talked about earlier in this video. He reaches out to her and wants help bringing Hot Dog back to life. And at first she's a little hesitant, but eventually she agrees. They do a spell, they bring him back to life, and then she gets in a lot of trouble for it because you're not supposed to do stuff like that. And so some stuff happens with her, and then Hot Dog does come back to life, but he's a zombie. Now, Jughead goes to school the next day. He comes home. He goes up to his front porch, and Hot Dog is underneath his porch, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're back. This spell worked. Come here." And Hot Dog bites his arm. Jughead is confused because Hot Dog's always been a very loving, sweet dog. But he's like, you know what? It's been kind of a couple of days for him. I mean, he died and then came back to life. You know, who knows what's going on. So he goes, you know, into his house and stuff. And then a few, I think it's like a day or so passes and no one's really heard from Jughead. But the Halloween dance is coming up. So Archie goes to check on him. And he goes into his room, and we see that Jughead's arm and where Hot Dog bit him has become infected and gross, and Jughead is sick and just can't do anything. So he tells Archie to go on to this dance without him. He'll stay at home. And then later on in the dance, Jughead does appear, but he is a full-on zombie. It's great. The illustrations are some of my favorite illustrations. They are so good, and some of them are so creepy. Like, I will show you, like, these are so good. And the colors are all in, like, this red and yellow and orange tone. So, it's like that throughout the whole book. But it just is it's like a very fun theme, a very cool color palette. You can see that illustration on the back as well. It's very shiny. I don't want any glare on it. But I cannot say enough good things about this book. It's a very fun read because it's like Archie and the zombie apocalypse, so you can't take it too seriously. But then there are very serious elements in it, and it makes it so good. It's very well-rounded. There is supposed to be more, but the guy who writes this left to go write for Riverdale and decided he didn't want to do both projects at once. So he left this behind and did Riverdale and has yet to come back to this. So I don't know. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger. And the title to the second volume is R.I.P. Betty. So it kind of leaves you wondering, like, well, is she gonna die at some point? Is it just a title to make you intrigued? You know, there's a lot of, like, cliffhangers and a lot of questions that people who have read it have had. But this book is supposed to come out, it's supposed to have come out for years now, and it hasn't. So we'll see if it ever actually does. So just beware when you go into reading this book if you choose to. It does end on a cliffhanger. However, it may one day be resolved. We don't really know. But I think Riverdale is ended at this point. I think so. Maybe he'll come back to it, but I really don't know. But definitely read it. If you read any of these, read this one. But that is my top 5 and a bonus number 6. Graphic novels for you guys to read on Halloween. They're ones I love reading on Halloween. They're very spooky, but also super fun. And I thought it would be a fun video to dress up for and just talk about some spooky books. And like I said, I will have another Halloween video coming up with my favorite Halloween covers for comics that I have. And then I've got a different costume planned for that video as well. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Comment down below your guys' favorite scary books because, again, I'm a huge horror fan, so I would love to know what kind of scary comics you're reading. Because I have quite a few, but I could always use more, and I know more about, like, scary novels as opposed to graphic novels, so I'm always looking for recommendations on that. But again, remember to like and share and everything. Comment your favorite scary stories. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you hit the jackpot with the next comics you get, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!